Okay, so now we are going to solve for example 3, letter A. And here is a graph. And if you notice, the graph does not have a line connecting the dots here. So we're going to talk about the input and the output values, the domain and the range. So looking at this, it's very specific as to what values we input and what values are outputted. In other words, what values are my X and what values are my Y for this particular graph. So we're going to look at these points, and we have 4 distinct points. They are -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, and 3, 4. Those are the names of the points. So if I want to talk about the domain represents all of my X values. So if I just look at those. So when I write them down here, I'm going to say domain. And the domain is listed by -3, -1, 1, and 3. Sorry, grab my squiggly line. So these are just little brackets to show the set. The range is represented by our corresponding Y values. So the range is represented by -2, 0, 2, and 4. So there's our domain and range for this particular graph. Now let's take a look at this graph. This graph is a little bit different. Okay, in this graph we have a connecting line. So it's a series of points. It's every single point that lies between this dot and this dot. So we have to look at the X values. So here's my X-axis, and I'm going to look at my X values from the farthest point on the right and the farthest point on the left. This is my domain. So now to write it so we can list it, we would say the domain is any value from -2 to +3. So to write that, we write -2 is less than X, which is less than 3. Since these are solid dots, they're less than or equal to. That represents the domain. The range in this one, use a different color, the range is the values on my Y-axis, which go from -2 all the way to -1. You see it? This represents my range. The lowest point on my graph is at -1, and the highest point on my graph is at +2. So the range is -1 is less than or equal to Y, which is less than or equal to 2, because I have to use the Y values to represent the lowest and the highest on that range. Okay, please click on the next video to find some more information about dependent and independent variables.